introduce tonight's speaker, I just want to make a few announcements. So first of all, next Thursday, there is a special speaker coming, Rabbi Brody. I don't know if you've seen the posters around the Torch Center. It's supposed to be a very nice and uplifting evening, very spiritual, and encourage your friends to come and please join us. So again, that's next Thursday, February 27th at 7 p.m. So please come. Okay. Another thing is that the chili cook-off is coming up soon, and the Torch YPs will be having a table. But in addition to that, there will be Torch representatives as well from all different sections of Torch, including Torch Partners, which is our Partners in Torah division. So what I am asking is, I am looking for some Partners in Torah participants to join me at the chili cook-off, get cool t-shirts, and to help recruit and spread the word about Partners in Torah for Torch Partners. So if you're interested, please just contact me or let me know, and it'll be a lot of fun. We'll have fun doing it. We're thinking about maybe doing a raffle and just doing something really fun and exciting about it. So please join me, and it'll be a blast, and there'll be more people here to learn and really gain these special relationships that you will have. Okay, I also wanted to give a little shout out to Zahava Wolbe. Welcome back. Zahava went on this amazing trip to Israel with some women, and I wanted her to come up and talk about it, but I figured I'm not even going to bother asking her because she's shy. But you should go over to her and ask her, because I'm sure she has tons of really inspiring stories to tell you, and it was really, really amazing. So, welcome back to Hava. Okay, another thing. Purim is coming up, and I would like to do a special Purim Partners in Torah event. Now, as I was looking at the calendar, I realized that the Partners in Torah before Purim is like a week before Purim. So it's not, so I guess it's sort of going to be like getting into this Purim spirit. So, but I will be opening up that Partners in Torah night to anyone to come. So please spread the word, let other people know. We will be learning, but we'll also be having a lot of fun. And that will be March 4th, and there'll be some flyers going out about that as well, and some advertising. So just spread the word, okay? Because we want to make this program as great as it is, even better. And you guys are, since you come and you love it and you're really passionate about it, it really helps to spread the word through all of you to share your own experiences. So please help with that. Okay, now, tonight, our YP Rabbi, the average Rabbi, Rabbi Bucsko, will come up and say a few words.
Thank you very much. Good evening. There are at least 3 Jewish speakers tonight. 2 of them are running for president. One of them is just teaching you Torah, unless I should run.
That's good. Higher than average.
Oh. This week's Torah portion is called Mishpatim. And if you have a chance to go through it, it's very dense. In fact, the majority of the entire Talmud, I think, is contained in this week's Torah portion. But the first laws that are spoken about are how to treat an indentured servant, a Jewish indentured servant. And basically, the way it works like this: if a person stole so much money that he's unable to pay it back, he'll have to put himself into servitude in order to pay off his debt. What is not the main topic of what I want to speak about, but a beautiful thing I want to address, is some people are familiar with, there's a section in the Talmud that says if you acquire a servant for yourself, it's as if you acquired a master for yourself, because of the intense obligations that are required of you to take care of your servant. For example, if you only have 1 pillow, you have to give it to your servant, you can't have it for yourself, you have to feed him, etc. What's amazing is, if someone commits theft to such a degree that he can't pay it back, he doesn't have any money, we don't throw him in some rotting prison somewhere. In fact, the person that he stole from takes him into his home, and he lives with his family. That's a real correctional facility. This is what a Jewish family looks like, and this is how to improve your life. So that's just one very beautiful thing that I wanted to point about the Torah. But what I want to speak about is that there's one aspect of this servitude which is fascinating, which is that he's only meant to serve for a very specific amount of time in order to repay his debt. If he chooses to extend his servitude indefinitely, it'll end after a maximum of 50 years. But if he does choose to stay in servitude, so as a way of punishment for him choosing such a negative outcome, which we'll explain, I guess, a little bit why it's such a terrible thing, we take him to a doorpost and hammer a nail through his ear, just make a hole, pierce his ear, basically, his right ear. And Rashi gives the explanation in the name of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that the ear that when this man was standing on Mount Sinai, at least his soul was in our generation, and he heard God say, "Don't steal," and we became servants to Hashem, and then he went ahead and did it. So that ear, that same ear that heard that, we make a hole in it. It's very funny because what did he hear at Mount Sinai? Yeah, he heard "Don't steal." He also heard everything. The fact that this week's Torah portion, with all of the laws of the Talmud and basically most of Jewish law contained here, is right next to the portion where we receive the Torah, is to teach us that all of those laws were also given at Mount Sinai. So he heard everything. So why don't we say, well, the guy ate bacon, so the same ear that heard "Don't eat bacon," we should pierce his ear every time he eats bacon. Every time he does anything wrong. He saw at Mount Sinai, he heard God. Yeah. So that's question number one. What's so special about this scenario? And it's not just that he can steal, also, it's a very specific situation. He was in servitude and then chose to extend it. So there's something unique over here. It must be a little bit deeper. There's another question I have, which is there's a section of the Gemara, the Talmud, in Bava Kama, which deals with how to repay injuries that were done to a servant. So normally the way it works is, let's say a person is worth $400 in the slave trade because of his skill, whatever. So if you have a servant like this and he's worth $400 because of his ability, and you break his arm, and now he's only worth $150. So you have to pay him the difference. He used to be worth $400, now he's worth $150, you have to pay $250. If the person deafened the servant, he has to pay the entire value, not just the difference of however it would be evaluated. What we learn is that it's evaluated by his entire value. And there's no other injury that's like that, which is very perplexing because let's say if you blind him, you don't pay his entire value, you just pay however much he's worth now. He's slightly debilitated, the fact that he can't see, maybe more than slightly, but you don't pay his entire value. So what's worse, deafness or blindness? Now from another Talmud, I would say blindness is worse. The Talmud says there are 4 people that are considered as if they're dead. Someone that has saras, which is this spiritual, maybe also physical ailment, someone that doesn't have any children, someone that is poor, and the last one is someone who's blind. Deafness is not on the list. So I think that maybe blindness is worse. It's considered as if he's dead. A deaf person's not. So why is it that if you deafen a servant, you have to pay his entire value, but if blinding him, you don't? Okay, we have these 2 questions. It would seem that the ability to hear is deeply tied to servitude, to being a servant. What we did see from that previous Talmud I just mentioned is that maybe intrinsically blindness is worse for a human being. They're considered as if they're dead, for whatever reason. It's not our topic. But when it comes to being a servant, your ability to hear is everything, because a servant is defined by his ability to follow orders. If he's incapable of hearing your instructions, then he's totally useless as a servant. In fact, maybe the blind person is even better off as a servant. He doesn't see parts of your business maybe he shouldn't be seeing, right? Is it just to follow something blindly? Maybe that's even better as a servant. Okay, you can't do certain work, but when he can't hear your instructions, he's totally worthless as a servant, not as a human being, but as a servant. And therefore, to drill in, pun intended, this message, that he was a servant of God. We escaped slavery in Egypt and were lifted to unbelievable heights to become direct servants of the Almighty himself. And now he's choosing, you know what? I'm going to be a servant to someone else. You say that, we have to drill a hole in his ear because there's something wrong with his hearing. Why would a person choose to remain in slavery? Servitude, whatever. Because it's comfortable. Because when you're a servant to someone else, like we already mentioned, you're taken care of. All your food's taken care of, your bedding, you don't have to worry about anything, you don't have to make any decisions for yourself, you don't have to think for yourself. Just wake up in the morning, do what you're told. It's very comfortable, it's very easy. Freedom is difficult. Freedom is difficult. And it's hard to get up and make difficult decisions. It's hard to think for yourself, and it requires a tremendous amount of effort and responsibility. But that's what we gained when we became servants of God. Someone who chooses that comfort over their freedom and their ability to do what God tells them to do as opposed to succumbing to what's comfortable, that person has a hearing problem. So how do we apply this in our lives? How do we use, we know that the term Eved Hashem, servant of God, is the highest praise possible, and it was only said with regard to Moses himself, no one else. That's the highest praise. So we see that hearing is deeply tied to being a servant of God. How do we do that? What's the path we start on? And I believe it's this. We have to start by being good listeners. And specifically, when it comes to Torah learning, it's very easy that when you hear an idea, you have an immediate reaction. You agree, you disagree. Let's say you disagree, right? You come here tonight, you have a partner, a learning partner, and they say something, you say, well, I think this and that. Slow down, maybe you're right, maybe you're not. You'll never know if you don't listen. The ability to listen opens you up to a whole new world that you might never imagine. Because without listening, your perspective is just limited to whatever you understand at the time, and there's no capacity for growth. By practicing listening, you come to to here where you're learning with your partner, or you go to a Torah class. Try keeping your mouth shut a little bit. You know, at least at first. Rabbi Akiva didn't speak for, 10 years? I don't know, when he started to learn. Try just listening. If we start to practice being listeners in our life, with the help of God, that will move us toward growth, wisdom, and the perspective of being an Eved Hashem, a servant of God. Okay, have a great night.